The Historic Preservation Office within the City of Phoenix is in the Planning and Development Department. And so the Historic Preservation Officer really is responsible for trying to protect the city's historic resources. And so how do we do that? We do that through identifying those historic resources and then trying to protect them by listing them on the Phoenix Historic Property Register, maybe offering grant funds to help people rehabilitate those buildings. And you even work with other departments within the City of Phoenix that are responsible for many of the city's historic buildings. I have a master's degree in urban and regional development from Florida State University, and I moved to Phoenix just a little over 25 years ago, and I've worked for the City of Phoenix the whole time. In the last 10 years, I worked for the Historic Preservation Office. I started out in the planning department, and I always really enjoyed when Kevin Waite would come to our planning commission meetings and share with us the history of the city, and he would be presenting different neighborhoods for designation, and he would go through the different home styles. And really, Kevin Waite was a real inspiration to me. He's worked for the city almost as long as I have, and he's been in the Historic Preservation Office, and really, that really opened my eyes to what a wonderful job it is to protect the city's resources and tell the story of the history of the city. So generally speaking, to be an eligible historic property, you're looking at properties that are typically a minimum of 50 years of age. And so they also have to have significance and they have to have integrity. But in the city of Phoenix, we're known as kind of a post-war city, but obviously we had a city much earlier than that. And you have to also consider the communities that were here before, before we were here. So, the city, some people think we don't have anything historic, but we do, we do, but it may be different than what you see in other cities. There was a civilization here before we were here, and it was Jack Swilling who came and recognized that the canal system that the Hohokam had created could be repurposed, and so he took advantage of that, and really the city started to bloom. I think a lot of people came west for opportunities, and maybe it was because of their health, maybe it was to find a place where they could really be somebody. And there are lots of opportunities here. You can still today, you can move to Phoenix from anywhere else, and it is of what you make it, how you get involved and how much effort you put into it. And so I think the city has always been a place that people can come and find themselves and be who they want to be. So our historic neighborhoods are what many people call kind of the heart of the city, and they're very close to the downtown area. They are well organized. They are trying to protect the historic character of their neighborhoods, and they're very involved in city government. They really contribute, their efforts in preserving these neighborhoods have really contributed to what you see here today. Wonderful neighborhoods, that are thriving. In many of them there are a mix of uses, and you have people that, are really involved with their neighborhoods. They're out and about. They do home tours. They have various activities. They're very involved in any city processes that come along that might impact their neighborhood. If you tear everything down and build new, you don't have that same sense of character. Those buildings that are an important part of our fabric of our city, not only are they adding kind of a human scale to the newer development we see today, but also the materials, the craftsmanship, the opportunities for smaller businesses to go into those buildings. They really create a sense of place, and I think it's really important, and that's why so many people in our city, and especially the preservation community, will come out and advocate and strive to save what we have. The Historic Preservation Office did not exist until 1985, when Terry Goddard, our Mayor Terry Goddard, made good on a campaign promise, put together an ad hoc committee and created our Historic Preservation Office, which of course created my job and the Phoenix Historic Property Register and the Historic Preservation Commission. And so since that time, that's really, the materials we have don't date back, prior to the mid-'80s, but through research we have done for various projects and for survey work that we've hired consultants to do, or for whatever reason we have information like doing those ethnic heritage story maps, we are more than happy anytime people contact our office and they want to know more. We will provide access to all of the information that we have. Frequently during the month we'll get requests for demolitions. These are demolitions that may be of historic properties that are on the Phoenix Register, or they may be for properties that are part of a 30-day demolition hold. They're not protected by being on the Phoenix Register, but back in 2016 our City Council approved an amendment to the building code where instead of someone coming in and getting a permit, in 5 minutes to go demolish a building that may be important to our city's history, there's a 30-day wait. So we can communicate that to the public. There's a sign posted, an email goes out to the preservation community letting them know, is this an eligible historic property? Is it important? And in some cases, we've been able to convince property owners not to demolish or to save those properties. Charlie, what attracted you to this building? What was it about the building?
Well, I think all the projects we've ever done in Phoenix have to do with adaptive reuse.
So when I was working in the planning department, I had the opportunity and the pleasure to serve on the city's task force for adaptive reuse. And at the time, I was working on the arts, culture, and small business overlay, that task force I think was around 2008-09. So we started this task force to come up with ways that we could assist and ease developers or business owners to do adaptive reuse of our buildings. And of course that was before I was even involved in the Historic Preservation Office. But that's always been part of planning, has been to try to utilize, not just from a sustainability standpoint, but for a sense of place, these smaller buildings. And so we were doing that in the writing of encouraging that through the overlay I was working on, and then this task force, broadened that out, and we did a pilot program for a while, saw that worked, and then expanded that pilot program. So there have been a couple of different iterations, but it's been over 10 years. I started in September of 2011, and in less than a year, in June of 2012, the David and Gladys Wright house was threatened with demolition. And that's a very important house, not just to the city of Phoenix, but to our country and also internationally. So to lose that building would have been really devastating because people care about it all over the world. And so I guess we were fortunate that it was actually our planning commission that initiated designation of that property in order to slow the demolition. But our Historic Preservation Commission, our Planning Commission, and our City Council, we really worked hard in the preservation community. We worked really hard to save that property. And luckily we had someone who bought the property to preserve it and save it from demolition. It was extremely stressful at the time, but also knowing that the house will be preserved into the future, that's very rewarding. And that was really a high profile case that I faced just starting my work with the office. So that one stands out in my mind. Right now, the City Center Motel, which is there on Van Buren and 6th Avenue, they came in to demolish that hotel. We had a lot of input from the community, and our Historic Preservation Commission initiated designation to buy some time to see if they couldn't incorporate that hotel into their plans for a new hotel. You know, the property owners are actually the building that is a Googie style architecture, they are incorporating that into their new design for the hotel. We never really had a comprehensive historic preservation plan, and so that was also Erica Finbrotten, who was part of our office at the time, charged her with working on this plan. It was a community-driven plan. It took some time, but City Council did approve that plan back in January of 2015. And so that plan was both educational and aspirational. So it really, you know, when people want to know about preservation and what we do and what are the legal aspects and the environmental aspects and everything else, I always refer people to that plan because it was very well written. People can read that and get a real sense of what our office does. So our ethnic heritage surveys were actually completed prior to my tenure in the office. The city hired consultants. We had certified local government grants that we received to do those surveys. And we had some bond money available to do some of that work. And we hired consultants for the Asian American, African American, and Hispanic communities. And, I don't think up until that time we had really done a great job of making sure we tell everyone's stories. And so it was wonderful that the city worked with the consultants and the communities to identify the properties that are really important to those communities. And those and we tried to reach out to property owners to list their properties on the Phoenix Historic Property Register as well. But there were a lot of efforts, and then this past year or so, people don't always pull a survey that's very technical off a shelf and read it. And so the idea was to find an interactive way for the community to learn about this history. And so what we did, we had hired two wonderful new planner ones, Crystal and Mara, in our office. And the first task they had outside of their day-to-day duties was to create story maps. They're interactive maps that are available on our website that people can navigate as they please. And they're full of wonderful images and articles and stories. And it's a work in progress. They were awarded both a governor's award for their effort and also a Planning Association award this past year for those efforts. And it's a living and breathing document. So we're not stopping with what's there today. We will be adding oral histories, and as we learn of additional properties that are important to those communities, we'll be adding those. So it's something that will continue to change and update, and we really encourage people, as they interact with those maps, and it's just a lot of fun to dive in there, and you can learn so much about the city and the contributions of, those communities. Wow, it would be wonderful if we had some real data to show what contributions that historic preservation has made to our city. I think we all kind of know that, but to be able to quantify that and tell those stories, I think was real valuable. So the study, they call it Preservation Phoenix Style, and I thought that was a wonderful title they gave it, because we don't do preservation like everywhere else in the country. We have some wonderful carrots, if you will, like a grant program that's very successful, but we also have some sticks here, like Prop 207, that has limited us designating any more historic neighborhoods or historic properties. So that's why we have to be very creative in how we get people to preserve historic properties and what we can offer them. And so we really, that study really, I think, help explain all the various ways that preservation benefits our city. And so that's on our website. I would encourage anyone to read it. It's such an easy read, it's enjoyable, and you really, after reading it, I think you have a real good understanding of why historic preservation is important, and specifically to the city of Phoenix.